My name is Ronnie Earle, and I was for 32 years the district attorney of Travis County, which is where the capital of Texas, Austin, is located. I came to Austin to attend the University of Texas as a freshman in college in the fall of 1960, and ended up going to law school, mostly because I had been a journalism major for a year, and quickly realized that that was not going to be anything that was going to be able to let me pay off my college loans. And so I went to law school. After I got out of law school, I went to work for the governor's office, worked there for a year and a half, and then I became a night judge of the Austin Municipal Court, which was in many ways the best job I ever had. It was really fun. I did that for several years and was the head of a state agency called the Texas Judicial Council. Then I ran for the legislature and was elected, and then served during an effort to rewrite the Texas Constitution, which had been what I had been doing as the director of the Texas Judicial Council. And in order to continue to be a part of that effort, I ran for the legislature, which was sitting as a constitutional convention. And I served there for 3 years in the Texas House of Representatives, and then I ran for and was elected district attorney in 1976 and took office in January of 77. My term ended December 31st of 2008. When I first became district attorney, I'd never been a prosecutor before. In fact, I ran for district attorney because I read in the law where the law in Texas makes it the duty of every prosecuting attorney not to convict, but to see that justice is done. And law doesn't define justice, but that sounded to me like a wonderful thing to do for a living. And people actually pay you for that. The book of Micah in the Bible says that everybody is to do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with God, right? I thought if you get paid for doing what you're supposed to do, then you ought to take that opportunity and do it. So I ran for district attorney and was elected, and was there for 32 years, which was a huge surprise to me. I thought I'd go back to being a judge. I enjoyed being a judge, and I thought I was pretty good at it. So I thought I'd run for a judicial office at some point, but there kept being these righteous fights that I kept having to be involved in. And so I stayed in the DA's office for 32 years. And at first I thought that, I really thought that justice was vengeance. That was my first idea. Justice is just desserts. And in fact, that was an intellectual movement that got some traction for a little while with a couple of books that were published in the mid-70s that I read that talked about how the aim of punishment ought to be just desserts. I thought that was what justice was. I realized that meant I was supposed to be tough on crime, or I knew that, of course. And we were tough on crime. We had all the time I was serving in office, we had a high conviction rate. Sent really bad people to serve really long sentences in jail. But it seemed like the more successful we were, the more crime there was. More crime, more victims, more pain, more tears. And so I started looking for some other way to do what the law said my job was, which was to see that justice is done, because justice clearly was not simply trying cases and putting people in prison for long periods of time. That is one function of the judicial system. So over the years, I came up with a definition of justice that works for me, and one that I used in my work and still use, or try to use. Justice is the fairness and balance that come from healthy relationships. And that, of course, raises the question of what is a healthy relationship? A healthy relationship, and this is all my opinion, you understand, this isn't the law, but in my opinion, a healthy relationship is one that shares joy, pain, and power. And those are really aspirations. I don't think anybody in any kind of a relationship ever gets to that point where they perfectly share joy, pain, and power. But that is a status to which we might all, with profit, aspire, it seems to me. So in any event, I became interested in different ways of doing things. And so I wrote a statute and got the legislature to pass it that created the community justice councils in Texas. Because we had been doing what I call community justice in Austin for a long time. And I had a sort of a definition of that. I might not be able to remember it, but it was a partnership among and between the agencies and entities of the criminal justice system, the private sector, and the public to perform those functions that were historically performed by the family, the extended family, the neighborhood, the church, and the school. What I call the ethics infrastructure. It is the atrophying of those institutions, of the ethics infrastructure, that is, in my opinion, most responsible for crime and aberrant behavior. And so I thought that the best way to strengthen law enforcement was to strengthen the community, because that is where those lessons are learned. So we started doing what we call community justice, that had many of the same characteristics as restorative justice. And then I discovered restorative justice, and it was a great discovery. All the elected officials who had anything to do with crime or public safety were represented on the Community Justice Council. And then we had a Community Justice Task Force, both of which were written into law. I wrote the statute and the legislature passed it back when I still got along with the legislature. It was a two-tier system. The Community Justice Council was advised in the writing of what the Community Justice Plan, which the statute mandated as a prerequisite for receiving state funds for the probation department. The state funds the probation department. But before you can get money anymore, since we passed that law, is to have a community justice plan. That plan has to be written by the Community Justice Council in conjunction with the Community Justice Task Force, which consists of all the people who are not elected who have something to do with crime. The chief of police, the superintendent of schools, a crime victim, the head of mental health and mental retardation, the head of child protective services, and a long list of people who have anything at all to do with peace and safety. And they advise the elected officials. And the result of that collaboration is a plan. In other words, as opposed to everybody having fights before the funding agencies like the city council and the commissioner's court and the legislature, instead of everybody fighting for a piece of the pie, they come with something like a plan, and they collaborate and cooperate. And it's much, much easier on everybody's nerves, to tell you the truth. It's also easier on the public, because the public gets the benefit of cooperation. Whereas before, there's nothing more petty and more turf conscious than criminal justice agencies. And so to do away with that, to get away from that, was, I think, our greatest achievement. When I say our, I mean everybody who was on the council and the task force, because it quickly became a team thing. You know, we're on the same side here, so let's work together. And we did. We worked together very closely. In fact, that's the thing that I'm really most proud of, is how closely the system began to cooperate, and did for some years.